Hello and welcome to the Reality Capture Goes Mobile webinar. I'm here, my name is Michael Mizuno, and representing the Reality Solutions team at Autodesk, and I'm very excited for the opportunity to show you the newest product offering in our product line, ReCap Pro for Mobile. So this just launched Monday of this week, and as I said, very excited to take you through some of the foundational thinking that went into this product, a little bit about the collaboration that we've had with Leica, and I'll take you through a live demonstration of ReCap Pro for Mobile. We'll do a scan, and I'll talk about some of the features inside of the product. So before I go through ReCap for Mobile and the live demonstration later on in the webinar today, I want to talk a little bit about the collaboration between Leica Geosystems and Autodesk and how that relationship and collaboration came about. So I've been involved in the reality capture industry in one way or the other for almost 8 years. And I know many people on the call today have even more experience than that in the reality capture industry. And from the poll, there's the other end of the spectrum too, people who've maybe never used ReCap before or ReCap technologies. But in the last 20 years, we've seen scanning technologies evolve from these lab experiments with kind of components that were just kind of hacked together to an admittedly small ecosystem of people now who capture reality data, and others who process that data into those final deliverables that we were talking about in that poll, like 3D BIM models, 2D floor plans, those kind of deliverables. This ecosystem as a whole has been kept small by a few factors, namely the accessibility of the hardware and the complexity of processing and using that data. So processing into a single point cloud and then using that data to create those floor plans or those 3D models. Leica Geosystems and Autodesk set out to address both of these barriers of adoption head-on. Historically, in the reality capture marketplace, Leica and Autodesk have played in really opposite ends of that reality capture spectrum. Leica concentrated on high-end scanning use cases where high accuracy and complex registration workflows were very common. And ReCap concentrated on really the non-expert user, making the processing of reality capture data as easy as possible. And we hid some of that complexity behind the UI. So we did a lot of things automatically, and gave quality reports and those kind of things at the end, but a lot of the stuff was automatic, but it was really meant for that non-expert user. This project brought together some of the best minds in the reality capture solution space to focus on tackling the barriers of adoption to using, collecting ReCap data and using that data. So let's explore some of our early software and hardware concepts that led us to what you're going to see today. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. This ideal was held as a guiding principle on both the hardware and software teams. In bringing a solution to market, it's sometimes easier to pack as many features as possible into an app, hoping that you can solve every user's challenge in every situation, and maybe even some of the situations you didn't think about, cover them by just putting more features in there. But I think on the ReCap team, it really takes focus on the customer we're designing for, and discipline to keep only the features that make sense for the platform. In this case, the mobile platform, and then definitely in the context in which the work is taking place. In this case, the collection of ReCap data in the field. So early on, we set out with a few goals in mind. Let's start by talking about the choice of platform. In many areas of our world, when you focus on the construction market, and look at what type of mobile devices are out there today, there is a large majority that are iOS devices and Apple devices in the field. And these are very common on construction sites today. A lot of times they're being used for really just viewing plans or viewing PDFs. But when you look at the percentage, a lot of them are iOS devices. And when you dig into the specs of an iPad Pro, you'll quickly become impressed with the battery life, the CPU, the simplicity of the operating system itself, and again, the ubiquity on construction sites. I already talked about how the hardware and software sides of the solution were focused on that capture workflow and how we were very focused on making sure we only included those features. It only made sense for us to choose a platform that was also designed with that same customer in mind, someone who's out in the field and who has some of these needs like long battery life, simple and easy interfaces when you're working on a busy construction site. There's also been an impressive pace of innovation that we've seen from Apple, and with the relatively new line of iPad Pros, they are definitely focused squarely on the professional users, the same people that Leica and us at Autodesk are focused on as well. So that was very encouraging to see that type of hardware being brought to market by one of the biggest hardware vendors in the world. So with all that in mind, the ReCap team set out to design an application that leveraged the proven reality capture processing pipeline from ReCap for desktop, but that was purpose-built for interfacing directly with a scanner in the hands of someone in the field. These are some early concepts that the team worked on. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is not the final product, but these are some early concepts that we wanted to share with you here today. But given how busy those construction sites are, we really couldn't expect someone in the field to go through some of the complicated point cloud registration workflows that you may be familiar with in some desktop applications today. That's just too much of a cognitive load for someone in the field, and the interface really isn't designed for some of those complicated registration workflows. This had to be as simple as possible, and so we set out to change the current experience of using a laser scanner. In the field, you want to capture your data, you want to make sure it's accurate, and you want to make sure you have adequate coverage. You want to make sure you have all the data that you're going to need for your project, and you want to get off-site as soon as possible. With ReCap Pro for mobile, we explored these tools that supported only these fundamental needs. And so the interface that you see here right now is very minimalist as far as the different features that are offered, and really has that data in the center. The streamlined workflow was really the name of the game. And Brandon, who's on the line here today, monitoring some of the questions, created a design that minimized the steps and the touches to go from connecting to the scanner to leaving the field with a fully registered ReCap data. We really gave only the information that you need at this stage of the workflow that you're in. So whether it's connecting to the scanner, collecting the information, or adding notes that I'll show you later on, we really only have those options available to you when you're in those different modes. The ability to review results immediately really reduces the possibility for a bad capture. So we'll see here when I get in the live demo, the data as it's streamed in from the scanner almost in real time to the iPad gives you the information that you need to know whether or not you have a bad capture or not, and alleviates issues with poor overlap, scan to scan, and bad camera settings, maybe the exposure settings on your camera. We strive to get users meaningful interaction with the data as quickly as possible while in the field. Emphasis on seeing the data as it's streamed in, data kind of as the majority of the UI. The other part was to instill confidence. So in reality capture, precision is king. That's why we're out there collecting information with the scanners that we have. And if you don't trust the level of accuracy provided by a device, then really it's kind of a non-starter. So while the mobile application has no control over the quality of the data coming from the hardware, it's definitely directly responsible for how the user perceives and interacts and registers that information together for that final point cloud. So providing constant feedback on data and registration quality is really key. And so there's tools and features inside of ReCap for mobile that will help kind of make you aware of the quality of the point cloud that you're collecting. All aspects of the ReCap Pro for mobile experience have been scrutinized to provide an elegant and professional capture platform that communicates the level of quality and reliability of the data that you expect. And really, the unique opportunity provided by pairing the mobile device, the iPad Pro and the scanner, is also the ability to make use of new ways to capture data in the field. So the iPad Pro has a camera, like many mobile devices, and utilizing that in conjunction with a scanner that's maybe capturing images and range data, you can augment the data that you're collecting. Someone who's in the field has the benefit of the context of what's going on in the project, and if there's something they see that they feel will be interesting to other project members, they can capture it using other sensors other than the scanner, like a camera. But we thought of ways to integrate that information together and present it back to the rest of the project team. So now in parallel, as all this is going on the ReCap team, the hardware team over at Leica they're also working on creating a whole new scanner. So at that same time, it was all still based on the same principles that I just talked about: simplicity, ease of use, but it also targeted being a disruptive price point while not compromising on component quality, so directly addressing one of those barriers to entry, which is accessibility of the hardware, but did not compromise on quality of components, features, or the accuracy of the data that was being collected. So Leica looked at past hardware for inspiration, and this is a model T2. It was not a Terminator from the future, but it was a theodolite used in surveying workflows back in the 1920s. But for anyone who's already seen the BLK360, it probably looks very familiar. And with that same goal in mind of keeping the interface purpose-built, streamlined, and intuitive, Leica came up with sophisticated design with a clean, minimalist look, but still packing in some of the most advanced technology inside. With their years of experience in building scanners, they also understood the conditions that these scanners all face in the field. Giving the BLK360 a premium anodized aluminum shell not only makes it look great, but also protects the technology inside from the harsh conditions that the scanners often face. There was no compromise in the materials and components selected for the BLK360, but they came out with a price point of around $16,000. Scanning projects take our customers into some pretty tight spaces. In order to get unprecedented coverage without needing multiple scanning technologies or scanners, this new scanner had to be small, and that was a goal from the very beginning. This drive to miniaturize, of course, also helps with the portability of the scanner. Standing in at just under 6.5 inches tall by 4 inches wide, this is by far the smallest scanner in its class. Now back to the interface. A single button is really the only interface on the BLK360 itself, on the scanner itself. There's no screen, there's no touch screen, there's nothing besides that single button. And with that single button, you can power on the scanner, click it once more to initiate a scan with default scanner settings, and then click and hold it again to shut it off. All the other scanner settings, the data capture itself, the data processing, and the export are all handled in ReCap Pro for mobile. The scanner is truly wireless. There are no cables. This really is scanning simplified. But simplifying does not necessarily mean any less powerful. So the combination of ReCap Pro for mobile and the BLK360 will appeal to people already familiar with ReCap technology, but will also open up scanning and its associated benefits to a whole new group of people. No longer do you have to be an expert to capture and process and create from ReCap data. So the BLK360 collects 360,000 points per second, and with a range of about 60 meters, that's around 200 feet, the scanner is ideal for most architectural, engineering, and construction projects. There are 3 cameras on the outside of the BLK360, each with its own LED flash for those difficult lighting situations, and in a single pass, the BLK360 will give you a full spherical image. It also comes with a panoramic long-wave infrared camera from FLIR to capture reality beyond just the visible spectrum and into that infrared spectrum. The BLK360 weighs in at just over 2 pounds, and on a single battery charge, you're set up for about 40 scans in the field. Full dome scans, range data, and image data, all collected in a 3-minute scan. Class-leading speed as well in collecting that information, and near instant accessibility of your data on your iPad Pro using ReCap. Registration is also done in the field using ReCap Pro for mobile. This makes for a whole new way of working on your projects. And that's a little bit about the hardware side of the solution. Since we unveiled this project at Autodesk University last year, there's been a ton of interest and excitement that's been generated. And with units starting to ship over the last couple of months, our customers are starting to put that vision, the design experience, and the hardware and software integration to practical use in the field. In the architectural, engineering, and construction industry, people are already recording and collecting as-built information on their projects. They're documenting their progress throughout the construction phase of the projects, and they're resolving issues quicker than ever before with more information than simply just images. And with the breadth of products in the Autodesk portfolio, create yours and your customers' deliverables, like the 2D floor plans and 3D BIM models that we already talked about in the poll. We've even seen some interest from industries that we haven't necessarily been focused on, like media and entertainment. for the same reasons, the simplicity, the portability, and the power. And we expect that other people in other industries will start looking for ways to use the BLK360 and ReCap Pro for mobile in their specific use cases. So ReCap Pro for mobile is an entitlement to your ReCap Pro subscription. So for those online who already have a ReCap Pro subscription, as of Monday, you are now entitled to download ReCap Pro for mobile onto your iPad Pro and start using it. And really, on any iPad device, iOS device, there's some functionality in the device, which I'll talk about here in a second. But a lot of the registration and streaming of data is in conjunction with the BLK360 scanner from Leica. So I'm going to transition over to the live demonstration part of our presentation today. So you'll be seeing my iPad Pro screen. So I'm working with the 12.9-inch iPad Pro first generation, but ReCap Pro for mobile, all the features, the full features are supported on iPad Pros, either the 10.5-inch, which is the second generation iPad Pro, or the 12.9-inch first generation iPad Pro and second generation iPad Pro. So from here, I'm going to launch ReCap Pro for mobile. And what you see is the project page, the very beginning of your interaction with ReCap Pro for mobile. And there's two different behaviors, as already maybe mentioned. If you do not have BLK360 and you have the ReCap subscription and you're running ReCap Pro for mobile, any projects that you've published to A360, our cloud services here at Autodesk, can also be viewed on an iPad anywhere that you have a data connection. If you're going somewhere where you maybe don't have a data connection, you can download that information from the cloud, basically syncing that project to your iPad, and then be in a location where you don't have a connection, but you still have access to basically the spherical image, which we call a real view, as well as the range information behind it and any comments associated with it. Now, when I connect it to the BLK360, as I am right now, I can simply create a new project. So this is the room I'm sitting here right now. I'm going to start that project and connect to the scanner. So where we are right now is the home page once we've started a brand new project. I'm going to kick off a new scan. I'm going to talk about a couple of things here. So I already mentioned that there's no interface on the scanner itself. All the settings are handled through ReCap Pro for mobile. So here you have the option to change the scan quality. So basically the scan density from low, medium to high. You have the option of whether or not you want to take photos, so that 3 minutes that I talked about, even speeding that up a little bit more, and also auto settings for your white balance and exposure. So what you can't see in the room is that there's also an LED ring around the scanner. And that LED ring will give you a couple of indications if there's something that needs to be changed. In this case, it was flashing yellow, which meant usually that there's a low battery. So I'm just replacing the battery here right now. I'm going to restart it. And actually what you're seeing right now, since I'm not connected to the scanner, I just restarted it, and you're now seeing the connection to the rest of my projects on A360. So this would be the behavior if you were out in the field or planning to go out in the field. You could simply click on one of these other projects, and I could say download it, or I can remove it from my local memory. Or in this case, here's the tech shop project. I can go out and take a look at it, add comments, and sync it back to A360 when I get back to a connection. So the settings we already went through. You can also access the storage directly on the scanner itself. So you're not typically in here, but this is like a file manager for the scanner. So if you need to re-download a scan or you want to start a new project and add some scans that you did from another project to it, you can access those directly and sync those to your iPad project. So what I did right now is I kicked off the scan, and the process is basically at the very beginning, it'll do one 360 spin. It's looking for the auto exposure settings for your images. It does one more quick spin, and that tests for the tilt and level of the device so that it can calculate any kind of compensation that it might need. And then beyond that, it's now in the photo taking phase. So it'll do one full 360 spin, and with those 3 cameras that we talked about, it is starting to take those images. And one of the guiding principles that we talked about is giving you access to that information right away. So what you're starting to look at here right now is this information as it's streamed in. So this is the room that I'm in today. And you can see kind of this really, it's a rough image stitching right now. This is really just meant for you to access that information and look at the exposure. Is the exposure level right for my images that will eventually affect the color? Are there objects maybe in this room that I don't want in my scan? Maybe there's something on this whiteboard, which I was sure to clean off this morning. But this is really live information streaming directly from the BLK scanner. So it is almost done and actually just started the scanning portion. So this is all very quick. I mentioned 3 minutes. It just started the scanning portion. So while it's doing that, I took a couple of scans here before our meeting this morning. And I can talk about some of the other features that we have inside of ReCap Pro for mobile. So there are tools for measuring distance, same ones that anyone who's used ReCap on any of our other platforms and are probably used to. So I can create either freehand or I can change and constrain what direction I'm measuring in using our ortho tools here. So when you move it, it's only, in this case, say straight up and down. And of course, you can also change the units that you're working in and the mirror ball size. So that kind of information is directly available as soon as that scan is complete and processed. You can then start putting annotations on here. The great thing about it, too, is that this information can also have other information added to it. So I mentioned that we also want to leverage maybe some of the other sensors that are available on a platform like the iPad Pro. So here I can enter description, and having the benefit of the context of being in the field, this is good information that I might want to pass back to the office. This is kind of a live, well, this is a live view of the camera right now on the iPad Pro. Not a very interesting picture, but I'm going to take it, and I can use that photo, and that's now embedded in that note that I just created there. So there's other markup tools also available. If I want to call something out for maybe demolition or call someone's attention to, I can create hatching, I can change the color, and I can add a note again to this. But that camera is also super useful for something like equipment tags that you might find in the field. So you're scanning this project, but you're not going to capture fine detail on an equipment tag, let's say in a mechanical room somewhere. So using the camera, you can walk up close to that equipment tag, take a photo of it, and embed it right in the ReCap data. And so that's what we meant by kind of capturing the original ReCap data itself, but then augmenting it with things like camera or the context when you're adding notes and measurements and those kind of things. So right now, the scan's been done for about 1.5 minutes here already, and we're processing that information. But as soon as the scan is done, I can move to a new scan. So move the scanner to a new location and start a new scan. So the typical workflow is set the scanner down, start a new scan. As soon as it says it's done, I can move the scanner, and while the data is being transferred to my iPad Pro, I can start the new scan. And the processing it's doing right now is actually automatically registering. So I'm going to kick off a new scan just so you kind of see all this stuff happening in parallel. So with the 3 minutes that we're talking about for a single scan, as soon as that 3 minutes is over, I move the scanner to the next location. While it's scanning in the new area, it's transferring the data to my iPad. The iPad receives information, starts processing, it starts registering that information. Registration being the stitching together of the multiple scan locations into one single point cloud that you then bring into ReCap and to any of the other Autodesk portfolio of products. So the step here right now is registration that you're seeing happening live in front of you. That was one of the key things that we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure this was all happening live in the field, and by the time you leave your project, you would have that final point cloud. Anyone who's already used ReCap Pro for desktop is probably familiar with some of the screens you're seeing. So we didn't set out to make it completely different because there was a lot of great kind of design paradigms already in the desktop experience, and we ported those over to the iOS where they made sense. So in this case, this tells you and gives you some information on the quality of the scan, and in this case, it's very good. It's a small room, and there's only 3 scans here, and it's finding a lot of overlap and automatically stitching these point clouds together. If for some reason I didn't like the result, there is a way to manually register. You're not going to be here very often, but if you do want to help the algorithm out and find corresponding, basically, surfaces, you're able to do that. I can click on 2 areas here, and basically between 2 and 3 points that are common between the 2 scans will help us merge. But in this case, it had no problem doing it automatically, and all I need to simply do is say merge scan, and that's the workflow to go through that part of collecting the information in the field. Okay, so I'm going to move into transferring this information to the desktop. So I'm going to just cancel the scan real quick, but hopefully you get the idea of kind of moving scan location to scan location, transferring the data, registering it kind of really in real time as you're walking through your project and moving your scanner location to location. So it's really a first for that kind of workflow. There's no swapping of SD cards. This is all happening wirelessly. So what I'm doing now, I have the data. I added the one scan here to my project, and I want to download that into ReCap Pro for desktop. You should now see ReCap Pro for desktop. So I am walking my iPad over to my other desktop and plugging it in via USB. And with that same project open, and now in ReCap Pro for desktop, so the latest version that we released last month in June has the ability to connect to the iPad and download information from it. So the new project that we created right here, when you click on that, you have a new option to transfer from a mobile device. So if I hit transfer from mobile device, I'll be able to see, it'll communicate with the iPad Pro, and it'll show me the different projects that are local to the iPad Pro. So this is the one we were just working on. I'm going to select that project, and go to project name. And now we're going through the process of downloading. So while I'm talking about that, the iPad Pro that I have is the first generation, and the newest ones now have USB 3.0 interfaces. And so if you have a 3.0 interface on your desktop, the speeds that we're seeing unofficially as we're testing, we're seeing probably 4 or 5 times faster than what you're seeing here today. So that USB 3.0 is definitely supported with ReCap in this mobile to desktop transfer. So here we're finishing off the transfer. It's complete. I'm going to open the project in ReCap for desktop. The registration and the scanning data is all coming over from the iPad device. So there's no file conversion happening behind the scenes. The data is making it to the iPad in a ReCap native data format. And really all we're doing now is reading the registration information, in this case from 3 different scans, and building this new scan project up on the screen here. So I'm going to go through, and at this stage you have all 3 different scans. This is the one that we completed. So you can see this was me talking away as we were going through the presentation. And now the indexing part is really where this is where we convert the information into the formats that the Autodesk portfolio of products, like AutoCAD family, the Revit family, InfraWorks, Civil 3D, those products then use as a starting point for their workflows. Whether you're creating a 3D floor plan, a 3D BIM model, maybe topo maps in Civil 3D, that information is what we're creating here right now and preparing this project, as I said, for the rest of the portfolio. So here, as this data is coming in and we're indexing it, you're seeing this project kind of come together right in front of your eyes. So this is the conference room that you're seeing that we scanned. The RCS files and RCP files are being streamed in live in front of you. And so as soon as this project is done, this will be ready to export to any of our other portfolio products. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is then, so what do you do with this project and how do you share it? So ReCap on the web is the third platform. So we've already talked about the mobile platform. We've talked about the desktop platform. And we've talked about now the web format here. This is the project we already talked about and that we scanned. This doesn't include the scan that I just took, but this is the data from earlier today before the project. and webinar here today that I created and uploaded and published it to ReCap for Web. Now this information can then be sent to anyone who has an internet connection, and they can view this data without needing a ReCap subscription. And this information gives them the real view, the images, and the range information, basically the measurements behind the scene. And so any comments that were created in the field or on the desktop can also be viewed here on the web platform. And you can simply share this link out with anyone.